This is ultimate Chinese comfort food, just like Mom used to make. With minimal ingredients, you can make this delicious congee for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Easy peasy. Hey everyone, I'm Flo, duties behind the camera, and we're all about simple food, simple faith. This particular congee is super popular. It is usually made with salted pork and a century-old egg, but I am not a fan of century-old egg, but you may be, and so you can add it if you like. The first thing you need to do is to salt your pork bones overnight. So I have about 1.5 pounds. You can use up to 2 pounds with 2 tablespoons of kosher salt, and you want to make sure that all of the salt has been absorbed into the pork, and you're going to salt it, make sure everything is well mixed, cover it, and put it in the fridge for at least 24 hours and up to 48 hours. Next, we're going to prepare the rice. So I have already washed and rinsed 1 3/4 cups of rice, and I'm going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now, my mother-in-law tells me that by adding salt, it will help the rice kind of bloom when it's being cooked. And I'm also adding 1/2 teaspoon of sesame oil. And you can use just vegetable oil or canola oil, something neutral if you like, even olive oil. We just want to marinate the rice so that it has a little bit of flavor while it's cooking. And we're gonna set this aside for 30 minutes. While the rice is marinating, we're going to bring a pot of water to boil. And we're going to parboil the bones. And parboiling will help to release some of the impurities and the gunk that's inside the bones so that we will get a clearer broth. Before you put the bones in the boiling water, make sure you rinse off all the excess salt. Otherwise, it's going to be too salty. And we're just going to drop these into the boiling water. Woo. Chopstick skills.
Not.
I'm just using pork soup bones, like that's what it was labeled in the store. You can use whatever pork bones you can find, so long as it has like a little bit of meat on it, because we want to be able to eat that meat. So we're going to pick off the meat later. I got these bones, it's about 1.5 pounds for less than $5. But I also saw like specifically neck bone in a Chinese market, and it was like $10 for the same amount of bones. So I don't think it really matters which bones you use, so long as there's some meat on it. But yeah, it could be really inexpensive if you just shop around a little bit. So we've brought the water back to a boil, and now we're going to let it boil for about 10 minutes. And you see all of these bubbles that are coming up? This is actually kind of the scum that's in the bones and whatnot in the meat. So we want to get rid of all of this stuff. Once the bones have been parboiled, we're going to remove them, and we're going to rinse them under cold water. So do you guys want to check out the water? See all the gunk? It's gross, guys. We're going to put the bones now in the electric pressure cooker. If you don't have an electric pressure cooker, you can totally do this on the stovetop. For me, it's just faster, and I can get my congee ready quicker. On the stove, you would do the same. Put it in a pot. I'm going to put in the rice right on top. In my cookbook, this recipe is a longer process because I do it in 2 steps. I make the broth first, and then I make the congee. But today, I'm going to just do it all at once. There's really no reason to cut the steps up into 2. So we're gonna put the rice in with the bones and cook it for 45 minutes on high pressure. Add about 10 cups of water. If you're doing this on the stovetop, you can add about 12 cups of water. You're putting on the lid. locking it into place, making sure this sealing knob is on sealing. And we're going to cook on high pressure for 45 minutes. If you're doing this on the stove top, you will bring the water to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer and let it simmer for an hour and a half to 2 hours, and then you can check the consistency of the congee to make sure that it's the right consistency for you. You'll also be able to find this recipe on FLO'S.com. While the congee is cooking, I'm going to prepare the rest of my ingredients. So I have some bunching onions that grew out of my garden that I had planted a couple of years ago, but finally it decided to grow, I don't know. So I'm gonna chop these up. This was like just 2, so I don't know what's happening here. I'm also chopping up some cilantro. If you don't like cilantro, you can omit it. Both of these are like garnish and just add some freshness to the congee, but you don't have to have it if you don't want to. After your congee is finished cooking, let it naturally release for at least 15 minutes. We've left it here for about half an hour, not on purpose, just that's how long it took us to get back to it, and release any additional pressure that might be in the pot. Already there isn't any. So let's see what we've got. Oh my goodness, look at that. It looks super creamy. Looks so good. So see how there is no scum on top? And that is because we parboiled the pork bones. And it just makes for a cleaner dish. I mean, it's totally edible if you decide you don't want to parboil. Totally fine. I don't think my mother would. So I'm going to take out the bones and remove as much meat as possible and put it back into the pot. Look at that. Some of those bones are just fall off. So you can just leave whatever meat is behind. Kind of break it up a little bit. Some of the bones came right off. So the meat was kind of like fall off the bone, and you could just break up that meat a little bit. So most of the meat stayed in the pot, which is great. It gives me less to have to pick off these bones. But whatever's remaining, make sure to put the meat back in the pot. I don't know if you can tell, but really is a lot of meat on these bones. This meal stretches super far. $5, how can you go wrong? All right, I think that's it. Did you know that for us anyways, an individual bowl of congee is $10, at least.
Is that plain or is that with meat?
Well, maybe with meat, but really porridge is just rice and water and then your choice of meat. But you're not getting all this meat for $10. If you're using the century-old egg, now would be the time to put it in your congee, and you just want to heat it through so that the flavor of the egg permeates through the congee and it gets heated through. We also have some Chinese donuts, and they're hot because I had them in the air fryer. These are purchased locally. I didn't make these. And I just like to use scissors to cut them. And for our children, well, let's just be honest, for all of us, we love this part of having congee. Otherwise, what's the point of having congee? All right, let's get this into a bowl. Now the congee I've made is quite thick. We like it thick, but if you like it thinner, you can add more water when you're making it. But I do want to warn you that if you make it too thin, you can't thicken it afterwards. So it's better to make it thicker, and then you can just add boiling water to thin it out a little bit. So here are all the things that are going to go into this congee. They can help themselves to peanuts and Chinese donut, and we also serve it with this crispy, salty cracker. But let's put a little bit of ground white pepper, some sesame oil, a little bit of green onion, a little bit of cilantro, and that's it.
I think you can go more cilantro than that.
Oh boy.
You're skimping on me.
All right, are you all ready for?
Yes. The taste. Oh, it smells so good. All right, I'm trying not to burn my tongue. Creamy. The pork has that marinade that has an awesome taste. It's not salty by any means. It's just flavorful right through the meat itself. So these Chinese donuts, you dip it into the congee and it softens it up, but you maintain that crisp as well. This is super comfort food.
Awesome, thanks dude. I would choose congee for breakfast any day. For the recipe, check it out at FLO'S.com.